Hi, I have Arlene King here with us. She's our coaching director at Right Steps. Thank you, Arlene, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Great. Well, for some time you've been learning about Smarter Balance and PARCC testing and definitely reading everything you possibly can that's out there about the two tests. We thought it would be valuable to share your knowledge with our Right Steps audience and giving them some pertinent information that you think will be helpful for them to know from what we've learned from the two tests.
Yes, I have. I've been reading everything I can get, and I get the Google alerts from both the PARCC and Smarter Balance, so I've been keeping up with that. I've watched a couple of EdWeb seminars, and I've been reading the sample questions that they put online every now and then also. I live in a state that will probably be giving the Smarter Balance test, so I had the opportunity to proctor that this spring because a neighboring school was giving the sample test, and so that was very beneficial because I got to see the sample test, plus I got to see the students' responses to the test.
That was such a valuable experience for us. Well, I attended a June conference, and it was called Assessment Consortium Panel, and it was with Laura McGiffert. She's a senior VP at PARCC and Achieve, and Jacqueline King, who is the director of Smarter Balance. So these women definitely are leaders with these two tests in mind. And I learned a lot. I kind of want to just hear from you because you might have heard their names out there. What have you learned in terms of the test?
Well, initially I was really pleased that we started to get a national curriculum, the Common Core Standards. But then I had a question of if we were having this national curriculum, why weren't we moving towards having one national test? But the articles I've read explain about states' interests and that state governments really want to have a hand in making educational decisions for their students. And states don't often like to have things mandated. So they appreciate having options. And there are multiple tests, but the two that we hear the most about are Smarter Balance and PARCC because they test the Common Core state standards. And they're aligned with those. But I think that you heard some different things at your conference, right?
Absolutely. And I was definitely happy to hear the discussion at the CIC conference in Washington, D.C., because it's been a burning question of mine, just as you mentioned, why two testing consortiums have taken place. I mean, I was definitely discouraged since one of the main ideas of having a national curriculum is so that we compare how students are doing across the nation, and that's what's been missing in the past. With the different states, picking different tests, how are we going to get these consistent results? So when I was at the CIC conference, I asked Laura and Jacqueline this question exactly, and their answer was really broken down into 4 reasons. Both Smarter Balance and PARCC are being implemented in case one test didn't work. You kind of have that backup. So I think for our Right Steps audience, let me share the other 3 reasons that they said. They said, as obvious, there was a resistance to people calling the Common Core state standards a national curriculum. People didn't want to think that this was a national piece. And so having one national test kind of fed into people's worries and concerns about a national curriculum. One test felt just too stifling. It's our human nature that we want choices, and so I think that's why the 2 testing consortiums really came out. And then the last point that they said is that having the 2 tests, we're going to learn from what worked and what didn't work, and having 2 tests gives us more learning opportunities and helps us with the learning curve. So eventually the idea is that we can work into just having one national test.
And even if we end up with the 2 tests or multiple tests, what I've seen so far leads me to believe that we'll still be able to compare, that it won't be so bad because they're very similar. Even the leaders of the authors of these tests are saying that they are very similar. And they are both taken on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
They both test 3rd through 8th grade. There is a difference in the high school grade. PARCC has a requirement of some high school testing, and Smarter Balance leaves that optional. But they both do selected response. They both do constructed response. They both have performance tasks. They both use enhanced technology. The students have to know how to use the computer. They sometimes draw a line to match something from column A to column B.
Mm-hmm.
They sometimes highlight. They sometimes move things around. So they're definitely using the technology. Both have some optional tests throughout the year, but they have a summative test at the end of the year, which is the required piece.
Okay.
They will both use electronic scoring and human scoring. PARCC says they are going to use human scoring to begin with until they get more used to it and can make some new decisions. Both are costly. They cost about $20 per student per year, but they're similar in that cost.
Who takes on that cost? Is that do we know?
Well, that is a big question, because I know, like in Michigan, where I am from, the state government is now saying they won't take on any expense for the Common Core or for the testing. So that is going to be problematic. And
Sure.
a lot of the things that I read online are states worrying about that, and school districts
Sure.
worrying about
Sure.
the additional costs of the tests and the additional costs of the technology.
I'm just going to say that, absolutely. And I believe it's Smarter Balance, maybe you can correct me, they have a technology assessment tool for schools to take just to see how much more technology they need or how ready they are. So we'll report on that in our next series on this and give people the exact link, our audience, and so that they can do that.
One of the major differences is that PARCC is a fixed form delivery, which means every student sees the same test. The Smarter Balance is computer adaptive, which means the test questions change and move to adapt to where the student is and what level the student is. I talked to Emil Carafa, and he told me that there would be that human testing, the human scoring for the testing in PARCC. He's on the PARCC board.
Yeah, Emil is, he's the past president of the New Jersey Principals Association, a principal in Lodi district, and he also serves on, like you said, the PARCC, and so he's giving us some good information as well, what he's learning.
There's one other difference and thing that's going to be happening is that the cutoff scores have not been set yet. And PARCC is going to set their standard after the first full year of testing, whereas Smarter Balance is going to set their cutoff scores after they have the piloting in the spring of 2014. So nobody knows exactly what the cutoff scores are yet.
Sure, sure. So there's a big learning curve for everyone involved, you know, that we're going to all go through. And that's just a part of, you know, doing something new. Well, very good. At the conference that I went to, I also learned, because this was one of my other questions too, was is there going to be a writing score? And I learned from what the two ladies told me that are on the PARCC and the Smarter Balance is that there will be a writing sub-score from the test. What are your thoughts on this, Arlene? And do you think it'll bring back the importance of writing?
It's a little hard to say because I haven't been able to determine exactly what that sub-score will look like or where it will come from. That was another question I asked Emil, and he said that there would be a writing sub-score, but I'm not exactly sure what it will look like. But the thing is that oftentimes it does take the threat of a score to get districts and schools serious about a certain subject matter. So it probably would help the seriousness of writing to know that there was a sub-score. But I don't think it's going to be absolutely necessary because it's so clear for anybody who takes a look at these tests that having students who have a high level of writing skill is really important. That's the way their math, their reading, it's all requiring written answers. and a lot of response to text. And so writing is, whether there's a score or not, certainly important on both of these tests.
Absolutely, and it just ties into the college and career readiness that students absolutely need to be proficient writers to survive in this world.
Yes.
And we know in order to be a successful writer and learn and grow in your own writing, you have to put the time in. And so, you know, my hope is that teachers will start really understanding and practicing the teaching of writing if they aren't already doing it, that this test will kind of reinforce that and enhance their knowledge of what it takes to have students be successful writers. And I know, you know, I think it's important to mention too that we're very proud and excited to announce that we finished our revision 4, which ties directly into what we're talking about today. So could you just mention that and tell our audience what that's all about?
It ties right into the college and career readiness that you were mentioning, because the response to text is so important in that endeavor. And so teachers have been asking us for lessons about response to text and constructed response. And then when the Common Core came out and emphasized it, and the tests came out and emphasized it, we wanted to respond to that need. So we did add lessons onto 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, where the students will be responding to text in narrative and opinion and informative writing. And the teachers will actually give them lessons and teach them how to respond to text. And then they will be able to use those skills all across the curriculum, in their social studies class, in their science class, and then as they move on to high school and college.
Right, and so our new Right Steps really takes into account, really written for what we learned from you proctoring and what we've learned from our readings and everything, and so it's very comprehensive now. I know that our Right Steps community will be very pleased with what they see, and then feel also that they're really doing a great job with Right Steps to prepare their students. So, thank you. Well, thank you, Arlene, for your time. And I think it's important to mention to our audience, thank you for your time as well. Stay tuned for our next video blog series that we're doing, and that we'll be talking about the emphasis on text-dependent questions versus non-text dependent questions. We'll talk a little more about response to reading and using different forms of media, so you'll definitely want to stay tuned for that. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye.